Hey everybody, welcome to the morning market briefing. It is Friday, September 2nd, 2022. Special guest with us today. We got Harrison Pettigrew, new portfolio manager, just joined the team, started officially yesterday. Harrison, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
First morning call. We're going to get to know Harrison a little bit more here in the calls of the future and also even just later on this call, but we're going to open up with some economic data. Harrison, I'm very curious kind of your views on inflation, the economy, all that stuff. And I want to circle back to that. But before we do that, let's get some context on just some data that we have coming through. Yesterday, we got the ISM manufacturing index data. It came through actually relatively decently. The headline number was steady at 52.8, which does imply some expansion. Prices decelerated nicely down from 60 to 52.5. I think the expectation was around 55. Employment picked up to 54.2. New orders picked up. Overall, relatively strong data. I think Ben was the way Ben put it, and Ben's not here. He's at court today, which I don't know. I don't know what's going on. We got Ben at court. Melissa's at court. Melissa's had jury duty, I think, yesterday. Yeah. So hopefully she's been able to put herself on whatever jury is supposed to make a verdict on whatever Ben has done. No, that's a joke. Ben's got some kind of marriage certificate or something to get. But Ben's view on all this stuff, he was pretty optimistic. The way he put it to me was he was less convicted in his pessimism than he's been since April. Yeah. So for those listening to the call, Ben's still pessimistic, but less convicted in that than he's been. And a big part of that was the ISM data. We also have the non-farm payroll report coming through right now. June job gains were actually revised down, which is not necessarily all that positive. July job gains lowered down. I'm looking for the actual August data. My computer is not wanting to work. U.S. unemployment rises to 3.7. So they added 315,000 jobs. Not necessarily the numbers. And this is where it's been tough, is just kind of this back and forth. And this is where I'm curious. I want to kind of get you involved here a little more. You're new here, new to Narwhal. You've probably not listened to every single one of these calls. I'm curious, your thought is you're looking at the economy right now, Harrison. The thing we're struggling with, and I think everybody is just good data, bad data, good data, bad data, good bad data, bad data. And not only that, but also good data, market down, bad data, market up sometimes. Where do you kind of see us going as you're thinking about how we got here next couple months to the close of the year? What's most important? What are you watching? What are your reads on these things?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been looking at inflation very closely for the past few years or past few months. So to put things into context, I worked at a hedge fund, DM Capital. That's where I came from. Love the team at Narwhal. That's why I came over. But one of the things we looked at in particular, I mean, if you break things down to its component parts, inflation really is just two things: supply and demand. Right now, there's a supply and demand imbalance. Powell's been saying that for a long time. Things went transitory. Now it's not transitory. I still think there's a component of transitory in there.
I agree.
And I think we're starting to see that play out over the next few months, but there's still some long-term drivers.
Yep.
And that's what I'm worried about. On the demand side, we're starting to see things shake up. Definitely a slowdown. Say what you will about that. But I mean, I think job participation is the biggest factor right now. If we get more jobs in the economy, I think inflation will definitely subside more. But on top of that, we also have wage inflation. So if we see that pick up, I mean, who knows what will happen? I mean, we're just in this weird phase of uncertainty. We're going to see a lot more volatility over the next few months until things get back to some degree of normalcy. But how long that'll take, who knows? I mean, I think the degree of interest rate hikes is going to, I think they're going to maintain pace.
I agree.
Yeah. But I mean, we'll see how long that takes to play out. There are just some weird things going on overall geopolitically. It's hard to say right now.
Yeah, I think the thing that's interesting to me is it felt like a year ago we had a really clear view on what inflation was going to look like, and everybody just kind of ignored it. And now we're at a spot where there's actually a lot more nuance. I completely agree with your comment earlier that there are components of this inflation. There are pieces of this that are transitory, and we're starting to see some of those things adjust. But we're also even looking at things like wages.
Yeah.
There's been some periods of relative disconnect where inflation's here, wage growth is here.
Right.
Employers try to catch up to that. And, a concern I have is that we're seeing pretty persistent
Yeah.
high wages with components that seem to imply that inflation is coming down. And it's like, well, how long is that going to last? Because is that going to then create just another round of inflation because people are making more money than they probably should be?
Right.
I mean, the data continues. I'm not picking on you, and I don't think this was the case for you based on our negotiations and things like that. But the data on job switching and the pay increases there just remains absolutely staggering. And when you combine that with the number of open jobs represented by things like the JOLTS job reports, things like that, that's where I start to really think like, hey, people are going to continue to hop.
Yep.
People are going to continue to get big raises, and it's going to be hard to sustainably reduce demand on a lot of this stuff.
Employers have less bargaining power. Right
now. And I think the Fed, in a weird way, I completely agree with you that I think the Fed is going to continue to move at the same pace. I expect 75 basis point hikes until they've overdone it by one round of those hikes. That's what I fully expect. The nuance of 25, it's 25 to 50, but the risk is up to 75. Nah, I think it's 75. I think they have to do that. I think they want to do that. I think they actually have. The one thing they've probably done effectively is transitioned a lot of the informed community. A lot of people don't care about any of this stuff, but and it's broader than just the investment community. But one thing the Fed I think has done relatively effectively over the last couple of months is make people real comfortable with a 75 basis point hike.
No, I agree.
So they've kind of ingrained that. You mentioned a little bit of your background, DM Capital. Tell everybody just kind of where you're from, how you got interested in investing, how you got exposed, where you went to school, all of that stuff. Just kind of give them a quick background on you and what you like doing.
Yeah. So originally I'm from Savannah, Georgia. I'm a Savannah boy, born and raised in the South. And I got started investing at a very early age. So I think I was in 5th grade. I bought my first stock, Disney.
Nice.
Did pretty well with that.
Nice.
And ultimately went to Georgia Tech, was an industrial engineer there, was in the investment club there. Figured I'd go into consulting, but then just developed a real passion for investing, thought about private equity. And then COVID hit when I graduated. Somehow was able to land a job with a hedge fund and just fell in love with it. At DM Capital, our strategy was more concentrated value, real more bottom up analysis versus top down approach. But then, as I came to know Narwhal Capital, I liked y'all's kind of hybrid approach where y'all do a lot of fundamental bottom up analysis, but then mix that with kind of more top down approach. You're not stuck to any growth or value strategy. You kind of have a hybrid approach, basically where the market's at. I think it's a safe way to do things. And then staying diversified. I think the concentrated value play, a bit outdated, especially uncertain times with the volatility kicking up.
Yeah, it's tough right now.
Yeah, exactly. And so I really like that diversified approach, which is what brought me here.
Awesome. Yeah, so we were excited. Harrison came recommended to us. If you're on the call, you probably know all of this, but we do a lot with the Georgia Tech Investment Club and work closely with that student-run investment committee. For internships, we pretty much constantly have 2 guys in. One of them was on the call earlier this week. So we always have kind of this pool. And so Harrison was actually referred to us by a former intern. So we were excited to kind of reach out, get in touch with him. And then interestingly, another former intern was in here just catching up the other day, Christian.
Yeah.
And he was like, man, Harrison's the reason why I got interested in investing. And so he's now moving on to investment banking.
He never told me that.
Yeah. So, I don't want to make you blush, but Christian was excited that you were coming on here. We're glad to have Harrison. Harrison's going to be, getting acclimated pretty aggressively here, getting up to speed on our pitch process. Probably going to get him involved in some of these morning calls a little bit more as we kind of continue to work that rotation. Probably going to have him potentially present some stuff at the macro presentation with clients, and then ultimately in pretty short order going to be managing some portfolios for us. So we're really excited to have him here. Excited to have him on the call. We're going to wrap it up there. Big economic data coming out. We're getting positivity out of the market, which is kind of, as a closing note here, bad news is good news. Unemployment rate ticks up to 3.7%, and futures have really ramped up. NASDAQ up 0.5% now. I think it was in the red when we started the call. So it's an upside down world. We're doing our best. Hopefully Harrison helps us do better, but we'll talk to you guys soon. Hope you have a great weekend. College football. Any predictions? What's the game you most want to watch this weekend?
The Georgia-Oregon game.
Let's go, baby.
Obviously.
Yep. Georgia-Oregon.
I'm a Tech fan, but both my brothers went to UGA.
Yeah. So you have an excuse to root for the good guys.
Yeah.
So should be fun. We're glad college football is back. I wish Tom was here so we could really get him fired up about how back Tennessee is after their massive win over Ball State last night. But we'll get Tom when he's back from France. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.